All right, let's get us going here. Pushing buttons, I think. That means we are up on everything now.
So, these are all old questions, right?
Yes, these are new questions.
Do you have, no, I think those are new. We have a lot coming in through YouTube. Right?
Yep.
There's 16 new questions that already have responses.
Some that carried over, if you want to answer them.
I don't want to answer.
Always put the old ones below.
Okay. All right. Are we verified, up and running?
All my things say live, but we can double, triple check.
Let's just triple check.
Instagram's live. Facebook is live. YouTube is now live.
Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to the 034 Motorsport live chat 0 BS Q&A session. We are here to answer all your questions about all things 034 and anything automotive, anything you want to ask. We used to get more questions about non-automotive things, but not much anymore.
Seemingly swamped with automotive related.
It's got more like MILF questions than we do these days. But go ahead and put your question or comments into the browser comment field of your choice. We're currently on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We take an OBS approach to responding. Our goal here is to not put out more BS into the world. We would like to put out accurate information, and that's always our goal. And we are here to answer topical questions, not update questions about when something's going to be done or anything like that. So you're welcome to ask one of those questions. If we don't answer it, please don't be offended. It's because we are not prioritizing those questions. We typically have had 1 hour of substantive questions to respond to that are topical, that we can weigh in on with our ideas and opinions. So let's jump into it. We got a lot of questions already. And we do prioritize the questions for people that are here. So if you asked a question last week, please ask it again. It's not that exciting to be answering a question for someone who's not even here. All right, someone asks, as you increase horsepower and or torque, like Stage 3 RS5, do you increase the torque on your lug nuts over factory foot-pounds? No, that should never be needed. The idea of torquing lug nuts is that the torque or clamping force between the wheel and the hub should exceed the traction limit of the tire. And so if you add more power at some point, you're just going to spin the tires. And so that should never be needed. I've never heard of anyone doing that. There are certain cases where you would want to upgrade the size of the hardware. That's not a problem for Volkswagen, Audis that all come from the factory with M14 threads. But I've seen like some Hondas and Japanese cars come with like M10 stuff.
Yeah, especially if they're like 4-bolt. I mean, we're pretty lucky with the amount of hardware we've got holding things on.
Yeah, we've got 5. It's totally overbuilt in typical German fashion. But if you had like 4 M10 studs, I would definitely recommend upgrading to like 5 M12 minimum, depending on your power level. But there's no need to ever upgrade the torque or the fastener of your Volkswagen Audi.
Yeah, I can't even think of any of the drag setups we've ever had an issue at the hub side of things. Yeah. We've spun tires on the rim. That can be a thing.
We've broken everything else except that.
Like literally with the amount of friction and adhesion between the rim and the tire on a well-prepped track can become a problem where you'll actually spin the rim inside the tire. So that's a thing. But yeah, I mean, just think of like the forces, like you're coming from like 100 and whatever miles an hour to a full ABS stop is going to be more load than you're going to be able to put on that wheel and hub interface than you can from almost any power level. Similarly, as long as you've got good brakes, so it's a strong clamp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is the relationship between your B9 radiator upgrade and the Wagner kit? Does it replace part of the Wagner kit, or can it be installed in addition to the Wagner kit? So the Wagner does not offer a radiator upgrade that I'm aware of. They do offer the intercoolers, and they offer an RS5 heat exchanger upgrade. So all that is separate in addition to our upgraded radiator. We're the only ones on the market who have an upgraded radiator at this time that I'm aware of. What ambient temps were the B8 3.0T dyno chart ported blower? I've got an interchiller about to get Jokerz CNC port, trying to estimate how much horsepower gain I might gain without pulley change. Our dyno charts are basically normalized.
They're all normalized. We're lucky here where we have a very consistent weather and atmospheric pressure. So our normalizations are generally within like 1% when we're doing most all of our dyno stuff. We have some outliers where we'll have like a crazy hot day or something, but
we're not going to use that as our.
We're not going to generally use that as our marketing numbers. Even so, it is compensated for humidity, ambient pressure, and temperature, and they've all come out quite accurate. But yeah, I would have to look back through the actual dyno session, the day or days that was being done on.
Yeah, we're really not in our dyno charts are supposed to be representative of all cars.
Yep.
And comparable to all of our other dyno charts as well. So it's not like on the B8 we did a really cold day dyno pull and got a big number, and so we advertise that, and you'll never get there unless it's a cold day. So
yeah,
assume our temps are normalized to around like 70 degrees or something like that.
Yeah, and it again, like Joel said, it doesn't really matter. It's all normalized to, or it's representative as a delta from where it started on that car or that calibration. So it's not, as we've said many times, a dyno number is a representation from a starting point, not a comparable number across every other dyno in the world and every other ambient condition in the world.
Your new RS5 injectors, super slick looking by the way, are meant for stage 3 only. Could you possibly allow them on other levels to replace failing factory injectors? May need new ones before stage 3. I mean, we could expand the applications, but there's no need to.
Yeah.
The gasoline applications don't need that much injector, and it just it's not the right tool for, it's the kind of thing like you only want that big of an injector if you need the additional headroom. Yep. And the stage 3 E85 applications need it.
Yeah, technically speaking, the best, and you'll see this in every OEM application, the best injector is the injector sized closest to your maximum potential you're going to run. That gives you the broadest range of operating conditions that you want to run that injector through. You can run like 6,000 horsepower worth of injectors on a motor, and it would work, but your resolution and your control of that injector just gets more and more constrained. It's like putting 3 pedal commanders on your accelerator pedal and trying to drive it like that.
Imagine you're like going on a trip to the UK and you only need a suitcase that's 20 inches tall, but you bring one that's 48 inches long.
I think I know the reference.
And you bring enough clothes for 3 weeks, even though you're only there for like 4 days. So is it nice to have all that extra stuff and 4 pairs of shoes? Yes. Do you need it? No. So what's the compromise? You're just carrying around this huge suitcase up and down flights of stairs, escalators, trying to fit into the back of Ubers. When in reality, much smaller suitcase would have been just fine.
Even a backpack,
almost a backpack, yeah, basically. Well, and then imagine bringing a backpack as a 48-inch long suitcase. So, I'd say don't haul around extra stuff if you don't need it. Same goes for the injectors, all right? Just a random example I pulled out of thin air. Spark plug gap for RS5 is 0.24 millimeters. I'm seeking
0.24 millimeters.
Yeah, no.
I don't think that's
no
clear.
It's probably 0.024 inches. I'm seeking talk of gapping at 0.23 for tuned cars if you drive aggressively. Thoughts? There's no difference between 0.24 and 0.23. That's just a really small amount. So The thing with spark plug gapping is if your car is running great at the current gap and it's not misfiring,
Yeah, if you've got a good combustion,
you're good. If you're starting to see some misfires, you can try tightening up the gap. And if the misfires go away, then it means your gap was too big for the spark to ionize through that pressurized combustion environment. Okay, so here's why spark gap matters. When spark jumps from one part of the spark plug to the other, so from the electrode to the grounding strap, it's doing so through air. Air is an insulator, it's not conductive. But if there's enough energy, amperage or voltage in an electrical source, then it can ionize across the air gap to the other side. This is how lightning works. Lightning goes through air. It goes from negatively charged cloud or positively charged clouds to negative ground. Big explosion. On Earth, we have lightning the way it is because our atmosphere is a certain composition and density. Now, let's say if Earth increased in size by a factor of 1,000, the atmospheric air pressure would compress and become much more dense. And so one thing we would likely see is the lightning and thunder on our planet would change. Probably clouds would have to be closer to the ground for lightning to hit the ground because from 10,000 feet to the ground, there's just too much air resistance, too much air to ionize between those two electrical sources. This is the same thing with a spark plug. So we've built spark plug fixtures with high amperage coils, high voltage and high amperage coils firing across like a 3-inch gap.
Yeah.
And so that
from the
spark
atmospheric pressures, it'll throw a huge gap.
Yeah. So you could have a spark, like a spark plug or just a piece of metal jumping to a grounding source, 3 inches. Well, if the spark plug does that out here in atmosphere, it probably does it in combustion, right? No. The combustion is thousands of psi. Over 1,000 psi of compressed air and fuel. So now this spark still has to ionize through and across that dense mixture of air and fuel. That's not easy to do. So that's why we shrink the gaps so much. And a spark that could ionize through 3 inches of air can now barely get across a millimeter of distance, right? And that's because the conductivity of that compressed combustion environment, the amount of energy it takes to ionize, the distance drops substantially. Okay, so the difference between 0.024 and 0.023, that's 1,000th of an inch. It's just not it's not going to matter. But if you drop that from 0.024 to say 0.18, that's a substantive difference, and that could shrink the distance enough for that spark to ionize. It's sort of counterintuitive, but the more power you make, the higher your combustion pressure, the smaller the gap you need for a given spark plug and electrical charging source for the coil.
Yeah, and equally as counterintuitive to your second point was that you'd mentioned you need to tighten the gap if you're driving harder or driving more spiritedly. That's actually the opposite generally, because you can think of like a high load consistent putting a bunch of heat into the motor, heat into everything. That heat it results in a less dense air charge typically, and a more volatile charge inside the chamber. So you can actually get away with a larger gap typically. Your hardest mixture to light off is going to be the coldest, densest air that you can get into that chamber. That's where your spark gap is going to, if it's on the edge, it's going to need to be tightened up if it's starting to misfire. So there's just a bunch of counterintuitive thoughts here on how the physics kind of works out inside the plug gap there.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it becomes an issue, it's more with spirited driving, it's generally more a spark plug temperature range thing you want to play with, not the gap itself, because that's a whole nother set of variables that enter into play there.
Yeah, and the reason that is because when you're under like a wide open throttle high load operating condition, the spark plug itself can start glowing, and it turns into a glow plug of sorts. If the plug is too cold, there won't be enough of that effect. If it's too hot, the plug will start lighting off the combustion front before the spark has a chance to the coil even has a chance to spark. So that's where you could get pre-detonation if your spark plug temp isn't in the right range. All right, next question. It seems the big three porting companies, there's big three porting companies, claim similar 50 to 67 horsepower gain on double pulley setup and 2 to 3 plus psi boost. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but let's just say what you said is true. That's not surprising. There's a standard. There's no magic in the porting, right? They're going to go in there and they're going to round things and remove excess material and they're going to smooth things out. I'm sure there's some small differences between the different ones. No offense to anyone who does porting, but there's probably some worse ones out there too. But what is it? This is Jokerz, Vast, and someone else.
There's a couple other guys. I'm trying to think who the other big three would be these days. I know Matt was doing a bunch of that.
I know Jokerz does a lot.
Yeah, I'd say Jokerz and Vast right now.
Vast, yeah. But anyways, I mean, if they know what they're doing, yeah, they're gonna optimize the same basic areas. They're not designing a whole new intake, so they're constrained by the factory casting and shape of the factory intake and plenum and supercharger housing. So they're all gonna get about that. Yeah, that's not too big of a surprise. I mean, you could say like all the big three tuning companies get about the same amount of power out of a B8 S4 too. Sure, we're all dealing with the same, constraints. There's a lot more to it than just peak power, but if we're just talking peak power, can I run a 179 millimeter crank pulley with stock supercharger pulley on stage 2 E85 Crec?
Yep.
Yeah, that should work.
That's literally one of the supported combos. So yeah,
you just got to check the ratio.
Yeah, it's the pulley ratio that'll determine what stage file you need to run. So yes, that would be dead on with a stage 2 pulley ratio. So yes.
Mm-hmm. Can you create an option to turn an A3 MMI into S3 style?
I don't know if someone mentioned maybe they're talking about the virtual cockpit.
That's not really the business.
Not something we're typically involved with. There's a number of forum threads and companies out there that will provide information on doing that. That's very outside the scope of the stuff we specialize in. It doesn't make anything faster.
Should I be worried about coolant migration on my B9.5 Stage 2 Plus S5? Definitely seeing signs of it. Someone said I need an entire engine rebuild.
We had an employee that used to say that every time something.
It's always a blown engine.
It's got to be a motor.
Like, just a bad coil. Coolant migration.
I'm guessing that's the coolant into the vacuum lines for the N75 and
it
wastegate.
could be coolant or oil into the coolant system or something.
I don't know. We need a little more specifics. If it's the typical fault where it's your coolant getting into the wastegate plumbing, basically. Then no, that's you don't need a new motor. You need a new water pump, and you need to clean all that out and probably replace some solenoids and whatnot.
Yeah, if you're lifting the heads, which does happen on stage 3 cars, then you don't need a rebuild. You just need 11 mil head studs, which we offer, and new head gaskets, which we also offer. We're also releasing a tool fixture kit to allow you to drill and tap to 11 mil yourself at home. If you have to yank your block out and take it to a machine shop, you may as well get an engine rebuild, and I would recommend upgrading your pistons and rods while you're at it. But you can shoot us an email if you want to chat more, or ask more questions here if you'd like.
Yep.
Will you be releasing horsepower and torque numbers for the B9, TT, A10, E60, and E85 standard output files? The website has said coming soon for ages.
It's one of the struggles when we're always working on new stuff.
Yeah.
The site does list a general delta in the power between the two.
Yeah, it's about 80 horsepower and torque less. we could provide a curve, but and we will continue to. It's
yeah,
on the
as,
list.
as we revisit these and as we do further updates that are coming, we'll it's on our list to capture for market. I mean, we've obviously got tons of dynos for it. We spoke a little bit earlier about it though. When we do what we consider it to be a representative, marketing set of data captures, there's a much tighter protocol we follow to capture that data in a repeatable, averaged out way.
Seems like your website is faster now. Did you get it tuned? We're always trying to make it faster. It's
Constant source.
not like a DSG tune will help it, but yeah. We're always working on the website. We have a team that only works on the website. They're not taking away from our calibration work or our hardware work or anything like that either. They also don't ship any of our orders. They just work on the website full time. sfo.omar said, I just got my res delete for my B9.5 S4. Awesome, sweet. Omar. Assuming that's your name. And assuming you live near San Francisco Airport, near Daly City. No, congrats. Let us know how you like it. This is an interesting question. 034 Stage 3 Plus struggles to build boost during launch. Yes, using proper launch sequence. Yet does 29 psi boost while wide open throttle through the gears. Checked for leaks, new diverter, valve, etc. Sent multiple logs to 034 support.
I would need to see what struggles is. We do limit launch torques, and the launch parameters are not necessarily going to be full boost, because that'll generally just blaze the tires off any setup off the line. So yeah, I would need to see kind of what specifically you're looking at there, if it's anything outside of normal.
Yeah, it sounds like it's probably just you're expecting. I mean, you don't want to launch with 29 pounds of boost. You just
especially not all the time.
Tires,
Yeah,
so we are limiting launching torque, and it's probably what you're seeing. Although you didn't say what support came back to,
right?
I'm guessing they said it was normal. But if you're expecting to make probably more than like 10 pounds of boost, it's probably not going to do it. What are plans for the Thanksgiving, any Black Friday or Cyber Monday deals on the famous 034 chili made by the short gray guy?
Oh, man.
Okay, first off,
I read that as gray shirt guy, so I was like, oh, they just commented on his shirt. Totally misread.
My hair is gray, but
You're not gray.
I'm kind of like a flesh color.
That's good.
Yeah. The chili is not for Black Friday, and I'm glad you like it. It's for our Winterfest events, which usually happens late January, early February timeframe. So come on out. I'll still be pretty short, like 5'8", but I've got a good chili game, and I'm told I'm a pretty good swordsman, so I've got that going for me. We are having some sales coming up soon, as you can likely guess. So keep your ears and eyes peeled for that. Coming soon.
TBD.
Yes. I'm currently on Jackal, but I am looking to switch over to you guys. Well, that's great to hear. We do have a special Jackal discount for anyone who's looking to switch, just as a service that we offer to the community. What should I expect, or what is different between Stage 2 dual pulley Jackal versus 034? There's quite a bit. We actually made a whole hour-and-a-half long video about this. If you'd like to go to our YouTube, you could search 034 Jackal Fact Check and watch that if you'd like. We spend quite a bit of time describing the issues with their tune, and also comparing it to our tune and what we do differently to make substantial improvements.
Yeah, a lot of that video, I think, was more focused on some of the safety strategies and kind of tuning details, kind of, in how the sausage was made.
But the quality of the driving experience, the drivability, the throttle control, shifting, what we found in their tune was a real basic tune with a lot of patches and workarounds and band-aids in the calibration. They don't position it that way, so that's why we felt the need to make this video to put that information out there. Clearly, not too surprised they got pretty upset at us for that, but we've been doing this for 20 years now, so we put quality of our products, of our engineering effort, and truthfulness as a top priority, regardless of how someone's feelings as a result. So we're confident you'll be blown away at the 034 tune compared to what you have now. We do have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you could safely switch with the discount. If it's not better, if you don't like it, you could do a refund. We've had hundreds of switchovers, and I'm not aware of anyone who's gone back.
And I would say definitely make sure you do TCU too if you've got a DSG.
Yes.
The TCU calibration is as much of a refinement increase as ECU.
Yes,
side
the
as well.
TCU is a big improvement. You definitely want to do both.
Yep. There's a lot of feature adds in there. You'll also get, of course, the additional features that come along with it. You'll get the ability to flash everything through your phone, do diagnostics, data logging, and all that through your phone as well. Or iPad or tablet or laptop, basically anything you've got that's got a screen on it. You'll get all of the advanced features we offer, so all of the advanced launch control stuff if you want to use that. So yeah, there's much more coming along with it.
Mm-hmm. Follow up to B9 launch control question. Support said the system is calling for boost, but the turbo isn't delivering on launch. They said to check for leaks.
Yeah, I'll have to look at it. Like maybe ping support again and have.
Just say that you talk to us on the.
We will, like the launch control specifically can look a little different in the logs, and I'm wondering if they're interpreting it or being steered by your feedback a little bit on what they're interpreting, where it'll request potentially more than what it can make at that given RPM or that load point that we're at. That doesn't mean it's wrong per se. It's just it's a little different. It's going to ask for it if it can get there at that RPM and setup, but it may not be able to. By physics, that's what it is.
B9.5 3.0 T Stage 1 tried running 93 octane on 91 tune calibration. Felt like the power comes in early. Is this true or am I just imagining?
Power delivery is going to be the same. It could be
the
a little bit smoother maybe if you've got if you're on the edge of a 91 whatever fueling. And you're getting like a degree or two of knock here and there, or knock correction rather. It might just be that you're a little smoother if it's completely gone in 93, but no, the power delivery should be identical.
Uneven wear on inside and outside of tire. Any idea what might be causing it? Definitely, it's going to be an alignment issue. I mean, that's almost always what that is in these situations, and it is shocking how fast a tire can wear down.
Yeah.
When you have your toe wrong.
Yeah, inside and outside wear could be pressure, but I would assume you've checked that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you could wear a tire down in a week. And the issue is that if your toe is off, or let's say one tire is, one side gets knocked out, you hit a curb or something, and then you're gonna see the steering wheel is now crooked. Well, the reason the steering wheel is crooked is your front tires are cross-eyed, so now you have to kind of split the difference. Well, by splitting the difference, you're now off-center, and that means you're just dragging your tires along,
scrubbing your rubber down the road.
Yeah, and it's instead of rolling, they're still rolling. They're also dragging, and the more pointed out or in they are, the more they drag. And so you want typically just a very slight amount of toe in for straight line stability. But if you get more than a couple degrees, it's gonna wear your tires down really fast. So start there, check your alignment. If your steering wheel isn't centered and your car isn't tracking straight down the road, you definitely have an alignment issue. And go get that fixed, because an alignment is much cheaper than new tires on a car, especially on cars like these.
It sounds like they confirmed they do have a leaking shock as well, so I would say,
yeah.
Throw a shock in it, get it aligned at the same time, because you're going to have the suspension apart.
Get the shock fixed. I don't see that wearing out tires, though.
No, that shocks won't be an even wear around. If it's truly like a shock problem, you can get some little scalloping if it's just the tire shimmying down the road from a blown shock, but it's not going to be an even band of wear on the tire.
B9 S4 Stage 1 E85. Is there any negative effect to the low pressure fuel pump wearing out prematurely? Daily driver not ripping it all the time.
I've never seen a low pressure pump wear out prematurely.
Do you believe your low pressure pump is wearing out, and why? I'd like to know.
Especially daily driving, the difference in fuel delivery, at the pump itself is obviously it's more than gasoline, but the pump doesn't have to be driven much more at all. We don't necessarily have to change the pressures or anything like that dramatically. Mm-hmm. So, no, I wouldn't worry about it at all.
I have a 2019 Audi S5 Stage 2 Plus with ethanol. Now, when I want to move to Stage 3 with a new turbo, I will have trouble passing inspections. Yes, the more of your hardware you change, the more of a challenge you'll have with that. Technically, you do need to pass a smog check with factory components installed. Yeah, so I mean that's the basic. Depends on when your smog intervals are. What some people do would be to swap things around. Just gotta warn you that's not emissions legal and not recommended to do. But these parts are sold for racing use only. But that's that is it. That is a challenge, especially in states like California.
Yeah, obviously it's going to depend very much on where in the world you live.
Yeah. I have an important question. That's usually when someone has an important question, start with yo. It gets your attention. If I put the 034 ECU tune on the CGWC 3.0T, I don't know what that is, and also add the bigger supercharger pulley, will it work with the Stage 1 034 ECU tune?
No. You're going to want to put, caveats. If you're at like a crazy high elevation, some people will do that. But no, there's a specific basically pressure ratio limit that is set for the given calibrations. And a Stage 1 tune will only request up to a certain amount of pressure. Beyond that, you need to go to Stage 2. Beyond that, 2+. So you'll want to run a tune that is designed and set up for the pulley ratio that you're running. And it's obviously not just a single value change in there. There's other driving characteristics and stuff that are mapped to match the pulley ratios more closely, so that things operate properly. But you'll want Stage 2 or higher most likely.
Yeah. But I gotta say, great questions this week.
Yeah, we have a lot of good stuff.
You guys are bringing the heat. I have the camster mounts on my 2017 Audi TTS. Are there other suspension components you guys would recommend to not put stress on suspension geometry, or to let me dial in the angles even better? So I believe on a 2017 Audi TTS our ball joints and control arms should work on that. That would help further optimize suspension geometry. Our arms also have stiffer rubber bushings, which again don't deflect as much, so help you maintain suspension geometry. Our trailing arm bushings in the back will keep your rear suspension geometry much more stable. The factory comes with these really squishy bushings, and so the whole rear suspension is anchored by this really squishy rubber bushing. So whenever there's any side load whatsoever, that whole rear suspension will squish around, and your optimized suspension geometry will just go out the window, because the bushing squishing is going to determine your suspension geometry, not all the complex geometry that's involved in the mounting points. I think we probably have rear shock mounts as well. I would recommend our sway bar kit on that. It's not going to make your suspension geometry more optimized, but it's just going to keep the car from rolling over, and it's actually going to help your suspension geometry, in fact, by keeping your tires more flat on the ground, on the road surface. So I would start with that. I would look through all of our suspension and chassis parts for that car, our dog bone mounts, our motor mounts, all of our inserts will all help make that car handle better. B9.5 on track. Are there any solutions to keep oil and ATF temps down? Looks like oil over 260 consistently and peaks around 280 during a 20-minute session, which seems very warm. After a session, I do smell some ATF, so assume it's also getting quite warm. We don't sell any cooling products for those currently. However, you just need to look into putting an oil cooler, installing an oil cooler, and I think you could probably put a bigger transmission cooler as well.
And also keep in mind you've got a DSG on there too, so not quite ATF, just as a weird nerdy side note.
Racing Line, I don't know if they have a DSG cooler that will work for that, but those temps don't sound horrible to me. They're definitely high.
Yeah, I'd be more interested to know what your water temps are doing.
Yeah.
What are your water and air temps as well? That'll paint a better picture for us.
Mm-hmm. So this related question: you guys claim modern synthetics are great at very high temps. Well, it's very nice. We're gaining a reputation for the things we say. I actually appreciate that. Even at 280 plus, how could these oils not lose its viscosity at that point? Well, the issue with organically based, what people often call dyno oils, or oils actually made from ancient plants. That's
it's much less dinosaurs than you think.
But I think there's a certain bacteria too that was involved. But anyways, this is like the difference between natural rubber and silicone. Silicone has double the operating temperature of rubber simply because it's a synthetic material and it's engineered through its molecular bonds, to not fall apart, burn, or become volatile at lower temperatures. So the same thing with synthetic oils. These are man-made engineered materials versus something that's pulled out of the ground that was developed organically. And these synthetic oils simply have higher operating temperatures. The reason is the molecules in these oils don't denature at these lower temps. So they can withstand higher temps for longer because they're designed and engineered to do that. Just like how steel is stronger than iron. It's a man-made material that humans came up with to be better than iron. Synthetic oils are awesome. They're a huge benefit to the automotive community.
Yeah, and don't misread that. The viscosity will change with temperature, with nearly any fluid out there. That's why generally, if you are tracking it or if you are doing higher load situations consistently, we will. It's generally a good idea to go to a little heavier or higher weight oil for that reason.
Yeah, it's going to change viscosity, but its lubricative properties aren't going to
It's not going to break down the same way that traditional oil would.
But its thickness will change as a function of temperature. That's just... Turns out humans are a lot less thick at high temperatures than low temperatures too, so it's just the way it goes. Are there any gauges out there for A6 C7 models that keep a reading on the amount of boost and IATs?
We have tons of gauges. You can also set up your own gauges in the app if you want something specific on there. So
you can use our SPI app to make your own gauges on a tablet or iPad on your dash.
So 100% you can do that. Now.
I think P3 probably sells something too for the A6.
But the SPI app can certainly do that.
How is the CREC 2 Plus rollout going? That's an update question. I have it installed with all supported mods, and I thought the larger throttle body would be the final mod, but looks like high pressure fuel pump and gapping is the final requirement. Can't CREC go larger?
No, we have larger throttle body stuff coming as well.
We do.
That'll be rolled out pretty soon.
Yeah.
So all done and working though.
That's a good question. What are the inherent limitations of a McPherson Strut car versus an Audi Multi-Link?
Man, good questions this week.
Yeah. The McPherson does a lot of things well. But And you actually see some pretty world-class sports cars come with McPherson struts. For example, like Porsches for a long time. I think the 996 Turbo, maybe the 997 Turbo, both have a McPherson strut front suspension. Audis and Volkswagens did for a very long time. In the vintage Audi days, say the Audi 4000 Quattro, Coupe Quattro, or Quattro, all that, or S4s, those cars all had McPherson strut, very simple McPherson strut suspensions.
Basically any Honda on the road for a very long time.
And when Audi came out with the B5 chassis, it was a revelation for the Audi community because we finally had a proper multi-link suspension that we could use to create a great handling car if we wanted to. Not that the older cars don't handle well, but the problem with a McPherson strut is the strut becomes an integral part of the suspension. And that's why you see McPherson strut have big, thick shafts on them and very strong valving inside the strut body. The strut body itself is manufactured from a thick steel because that strut is now not just between two, control arms resisting the movement of the suspension. It's now an integral part of the suspension, and it's essentially the upper link of the suspension. And so it's supporting the top side of the tire and wheel bearing knuckle assembly, and then there's a lower control arm supporting the bottom side. So the knuckle has to be supported by at least two triangulated links, and the strut, which goes up into the strut housing, is rigidly fixed, mostly rigidly fixed with the strut mount. And so the whole suspension just moves up and down in a linear fashion on this strut. The problem is, as the suspension compresses, the camber cannot change. And so you have a problem with these cars. They don't really have a camber curve. And as the suspension compresses, there's no additional camber to give the tire more grip on the road surface. This is where a multi-link come in. There's a camber curve, and so as the suspension compresses, also more camber is generated. This is why on B5 and newer cars, when we lower the cars, we also get more negative camber. On a McPherson strut car, for reference, if you could lower the thing 4 inches, the camber doesn't change. It just the strut's just going from here to here. The tire's not moving. Nothing's changing. So this is the big benefit with multi-link suspension. Audi for a long time has used a virtual steering axis as well, and so the way the front suspension turns and pivots with steering inputs also optimizes the toe and camber of the two tires. The caster, all that stuff's impacted by that. So what you find is like supercars and the finest handling cars in the world all have some type of multi-link suspension. But you can do a lot with a strut car, McPherson strut. But the benefit of McPherson struts is the simplicity and probably the cost. They're tough, they're durable because they're so heavy duty, but they do leave a lot to be desired for performance. You could do a corollary with, say, a lot of people know about Mustangs, and Mustangs used to have solid rear axles. The solid rear axle is very compromised in different ways than the McPherson strut, but it has a host of issues. And so when the Mustang finally went with the IRS, the independent rear suspension, it really took the handling of those cars to a new level. And then really old Volkswagens, not really even really old, but say most Volkswagens through the 90s, and a lot of Audi, front-wheel drive Audis too, had this twist beam rear axle, also very compromised. And so you see kind of in the Mark V generation, Audi went with a full independent rear suspension, and that was kind of a new era of handling and performance for these cars as well. For Q7 throttle body upgrade kit, is there something to replace the restrictor at the airbox connection? I'm not sure what's being referred to here.
Q7 throttle body
restrictor.
upgrade. The restrictor at the airbox connection? I don't know what they're referring to. I'm guessing
I'm not aware of
the
an
inlet pipe, maybe?
restrictor, but our hose does replace all of that and clamps right onto the airbox. I'm not sure if there's a
if you're
restriction.
calling that elbow with its
Yeah.
whatever diameter changes it makes on its path or restrictor, then that gets replaced.
Yeah, we replaced the whole hose with a very high flowing new one, and we take out the mufflers too, so you get to hear the supercharger sounds much better. Is installing an aftermarket intercooler an effective form of preventative maintenance? I mean,
It's not really maintenance.
well, is it preventative? Does it prevent future failures, from happening? I think you could make an argument that the car will run cooler, that there will be less stress on the engine, less issues with detonation and things like that. So I think it's a little bit of a stretch, but let's put it this way: it's not going to hurt the reliability of the car.
I was going to say, if it's a good aftermarket cooler, there are some that are hot garbage out there that are cheap and cheaply made and can cause more problems than solutions.
No, but let's just say we're talking about a Wagner intercooler.
Yeah, if we're talking about a high quality
or 0 through 4 intercooler, it's not going to hurt the reliability, and it's only going to help the engine be healthier some amount. But typically, when we talk about preventative maintenance, we're referring to things like changing the oil, keeping good clean oil in the car, replacing fluids, replacing something that if it's not working correctly will cause a lot of other issues. That's preventative maintenance. So it's a little bit of a stretch. If you're trying to talk yourself into it, then yes, it is great preventative maintenance.
Right.
But it will give you better performance, which is really the whole point.
Yep.
Can I use methanol after the intercooler to cool the air without modifying the engine remap?
It's on a DASA. It's not. It's more of a cheat code than anything. It doesn't correctly. I guess it depends on where you're spraying it. Generally, all the installations will spray it before the intake air temperature sensor. So what it's doing then is blasting that temperature sensor with a methanol or water media, which then you get an evaporative cooling effect on, and your air intake temps report as lower than they actually are. So you get basically a more timing advance and more fuel due to that. The ECU thinking it's got a more dense air charge in it. So we're not huge fans of water meth. If you've watched anything over the years,
We talk about this a lot.
We've gone over. It's generally a very uncontrolled, very variable mixture of media you're introducing into the combustion chamber, and if it's not tuned for it, honestly, that we generally consider that to be better and safer, because generally you're not going to hurt things by adding some water meth to it, but you can certainly hurt things if you're expecting the water meth to be there and it's not there or not being consistent. So yeah, kind of roundabout circumnavigation of your question, but usually you can install water meth on most cars and it will function just fine. Is it worth it? Is it gonna solve a problem? I can't answer that. It would be specific to your problem you're trying to solve.
Hello, gentlemen. I have an A3 P3.2 with Vauquelin coilovers.
Excellent car.
Multiple shops have told me it's very hard to do a wheel alignment. Is this true?
Not true at all.
It's not true. However, if it does have adjustable top mounts, those can be a little pain to adjust.
And also, if I remember, the Vauquelins are really slammed. Even
if it's really low,
at their highest setting. I'm going from memory here. If it's really low, those cars do not have adjustable camber out of the gate. So if you're on stock top plates and don't have any way to adjust camber, then no, you're kind of stuck there. The back is totally normal. You can do whatever you want with the back. You can move that all over the place.
Yeah. A little more information would be helpful, but I mean, I think if multiple shops have told you, there's probably something going on.
But yeah, or find a better shop. Like literally, it's like we just spoke about, a McPherson Strut up front. So you've got essentially one adjustment, that's toe. Those have fixed ball joints on the end. So like again, I'm assuming you've got a stock suspension setup other than their coilovers. So no adjustment even on camber there. No caster adjustment. You literally toe, and potentially you can loosen the subframe and center your camber. That's it. And then the back is just also a very simple, very accessible alignment setup. So
If you're in the area, definitely come by.
Yeah,
We'd be happy to help.
I'd say that's one of the,
we're good at that.
one of the easier cars that in the VAG offering that you can align.
Should we talk about the Stage 3 RS Plus acceleration package for B9
Sweet.
applications and RS5 that we just released today? Now available on the website. So it's the same as our existing Stage 3 acceleration pack. However, with the addition of our new RS Plus injectors. If you missed it, our RS Plus injectors is a brand new factory injector that we modify to flow approximately 30% more than RS5 injectors. These injectors solve all your fueling problems at Stage 3 TTE 810 high output and offer full factory enrichments. There's no longer any kind of fuel system capacity limits with our RS Plus injectors. This package allows you to maximize the power on full E85 ethanol. No need to blend to E60 anymore. You can run full E85 in the tank and get full Stage 3 TTE 810 high output power. Check out our website for additional details and to purchase and for pricing. But it's basically, this pack is a great way to buy it because it's really only about $900 more than our Stage 3 pack that comes with OEM RS injectors. So the price difference between OE injectors and our injectors is about $900, and there's an additional discount that we apply for these packages that you get a good deal on it as well. So check out our website. It should be on the homepage under the What's New section as well. And if you have any quick questions about it, drop them in. We got 7 minutes. Let's see. B9 S4, do your street density upper and lower control arms with your adjustable end links withstand lowering better than stock arms? Well, let me clarify. The advantage of our control arms isn't that they withstand lowering better. The problem with lowering is whether you have our arms or factory arms is the way these arms are installed. When they're put in the car is put at ride height, and all the hardware for the bushing pivots is torqued. So these are torsion rubber mounts, which means the center of the mount, the metal sleeve in the middle of the mount, is fixed. It's clamped between a bolt and a nut, and it cannot move. And the whole arm, when it moves, it's on the rubber stretching action. The elasticity of the rubber is what allows the movement. This is not like a pivot bushing where the whole bushing's spinning on a pivot. The center of the bushing is fixed. And so when you lower the car, and let's say the bushing is at rest, and you lower the car, it twists the bushing a little bit. And that bushing is now always under twist. It's always under tension. And that tension will eventually cause the mount to fail prematurely over the previous higher position of the vehicle that allowed the rubber bushing to sit in a neutral position. So when you lower the car, let's say with 034 Dynamic Plus springs, you also want to loosen all the pivots for the rubber bushings and retighten them with the car sitting at its new ride height. This is the case with 034 arms or factory arms. Now, with all that said, our arms do use a stiffer rubber that you could say is more durable. So is it possible that our arms would last 10 or 15% longer or something like that? It's possible, but even we would not recommend doing that. So you just need to install everything correctly. Make sure the bushings are sitting at a neutral, untorsioned position, and you'll be good. Whether it's our arms, factory arms, or anything else. And that's just full disclosure, not blowing any smoke here. Anything we want to jump on? Do you think installing a high CFM fan directly on the heat exchanger would help cooling faster? Yeah, pushing more air through the cooler is always a good thing, but only when the fan is running. When the fan's not running, right, it's going to pose a restriction or it's going to shroud.
Even if it's behind it.
Yeah,
like
whether
it'll
it's
still be a
before
flow path.
or after. So yeah, as long as that fan's running, it's going to help. And if you have if you have the control system for the fan programmed correctly, it should help reduce temps and keep temps lower by forcing more air through the fan, through the heat exchanger.
Yeah, as long as you're getting more air through the exchanger
Yeah.
with the fan in place and running than you would without it. There's quite a lot of air that gets slammed through those things at speed.
Where can I buy a Stage 1 tune for my B8.5 S5? You can go to 034motorsport.com. You can put in your year, make, model, and all the products for your vehicle will pop up, and you can purchase quickly and easily there.
You'll need the flashing kit and the tunes, and you'll be good to go.
My wife's SQ5 is a 2023 TCU locked. Can you explain how the Stage 1 tune can still be beneficial with the locked TCU, or should I wait until TCUs are unlocked, if ever?
So we have files that get you the full power from that regardless of TCU. The TCU calibration on those is a nice to have in a lot of other ways as far as driving refinement, shift points, and that kind of thing. But the outright power potential, especially on a Stage 1 car, is all there. You're not gonna be missing anything.
Yeah, and can you answer for him? How does that work, and why is it safe?
How does it work? Well, we still do not manipulate any of the torque values going to the TCU. The TCU sees all of the torque that we're requesting. We simply are listening to one of the messages coming back from the TCU saying, "Hey guys, I'm only allowed to take this much torque," and say, "Yeah, well, you actually can take a lot more." That's the only thing. All of the other safeties and limits and whatnot are all in place still and reported correctly. All of the TCU's torque reductions for shifts and everything else and temperature things and all that come into play still.
So the TCU's torque holding power is not determined by the DSG tune. It's just the physical strength of the TCU, and since we know that the transmission can deal with the increased torque levels that we're producing with the engine, we can simply prioritize those messages from the TCU to say, yeah, we know, but thanks, you're good.
Yeah,
you know?
And there's a lot of cases too where you'll have the same transmissions in multiple models, and there's an arbitrary number in the calibration is literally like, this is the maximum allowable torque, and that's just how they've classed it. Even though it's the same hardware, same same components across the lineup, they'll just set an arbitrary cap at a given number because it's just another tool they've got to keep the motor at a certain power for a certain calibration.
But the factory TCU does not determine what the transmission can hold. It's programmed very conservatively from the factory, and taking into account that the TCU should always be seeing a factory programmed ECU as well.
That's more of it. They pair it with its stock ECU, give it a tiny bit of space from above the stock power level, and that's it. There's no reason they would ever need to send it anything higher.
Now, when we reprogram the TCU, we also tell the TCU the new torque levels. So it's always us determining what's safe for the transmission and the engine. In this case, since we can't tell the TCU to change its limits, we just prioritize them differently in the ECU. But functionally, it's just as safe, and it's still us in control. It's still us determining how much power and torque is produced.
It's effectively the exact same thing as our Stage 1 TCU software for the B9s. There's that one value we're talking about is all that's changed on that. Literally nothing else has changed in there. It's the same value where it will report that essentially to the ECU. That's the one we're just being like, yeah, that's nice, but we know you're going to be fine on that one value.
All right. It's pretty much noon. I'm going to jump on one more quick one.
Octane booster?
It's not another week without another octane boost question. Let's see. Can I add VP Racing octane booster on a B9 3.0T Stage 1 tuned car?
We do not recommend it. It's not something that is a consistent or known quantity. It's very difficult to know how what your true octane ends up with at the end, and or what's even in it.
I would say save your money and spend that money, buying dinner for a friend or a cute girl or something, because it's going to be much better spent that way. These octane booster products are kind of snake oil. There's probably certain scenarios that they help.
Yeah, they are likely a higher octane than the gas, but it's just how much are you going to affect your in-tank.
You do not need that with our tuning. Our tuning does not benefit from that. It could bump your octane up 0.2 points or something. our ECU is not going to care. You would make a very small additional amounts of power. You could also, if you're on the 91 tune, and if you can find some 93 octane gas, you could run higher octane gas, or you could blend in 100 octane. Then you would know exactly how much, octane you could average it out to see, if you add 10% 100, you could do the math on that. But in general, we don't recommend it. Sorry, Chevron and Slick 50 and all the other friendly local auto parts stores that carry these octane boosters. Just not really it's not worth the money.
Yep.
And most of them are just toluene, so you could go buy a 55-gallon barrel of toluene for
that was the big trick back in the late 90s.
But again, we don't recommend doing any of that. Just fill your tank with the right gas, run our tune, and you'll be very happy.
Yep.
Well, thanks for joining us. We're out of time yet again. We will be back Monday with some exciting news. So tune in this coming Monday. I don't know what date that is. The
17th?
Something
like
whatever the next Monday in November is.
17th. Nailed it.
17th. All right. We'll see you on November 17th. All right. Cheers, everyone.